Everybody, today I've got a quick video about a combination of two trips that are at the same place. And it's the Whiskey Mountain Peak, which is just southwest of Dubois, Wyoming. And I first climbed this peak in 2009 and then had a really special trip up to the summit in 2017 in August when I got to view the total solar eclipse from the summit, which was an amazing experience. So I've got some videos of that and some pictures of the mountain. So stay tuned for that. Whiskey Mountain is a very big and broad peak. It's just kind of big grass slopes. Looks just like a large mound from Dubois, but it comes in at 11,157 feet. So it is. It reminds me of some of the big peaks in Colorado. You know, just a big grass hump. And this peak is known for being home to the largest wintering herd of Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep in the United States. And you will see them around the upper reaches of the mountain and on the north side of the mountain as well. The trail itself starts at Trailhead, and you just kind of take a trip up the back side of the mountain, the southern and eastern sides of the peak. And the trail kind of peters out above tree line, and then you just start heading up, and it's one of those summits that feels like it's never going to get there, but it eventually does. So I figured I'd do this trip this week because I was really thinking about warmer days. This week has been so cold in Powell. We've been, 15, 20 below with wind chills reaching as low as below 40 below. My Apple Watch right now says it's -0, so I don't know how that works, but it's -0 right now. So I'm drinking the Bittersweet, which is a beer from Left Hand Brewing. It's an imperial coffee milk stout and really tasty. Comes in at 8.9% alcohol. Very good for a -0 type of day. So the first time I climbed this peak in 2009 was in early July. I was scheduled to meet up with my friend Bob. We had met online the year before, and this was going to be our first trip hiking peaks together. And so I was able to get to the trailhead a day before him, and I had a day to do something until waiting for him to get there the second day around 5 o'clock or so. So I hiked up Whiskey and really loved the views. It was my first peak I ever did in the Wind River Range. And looking south, at that point in time, I never would have known that it would become my favorite place in the world. And it was cool to return there in 2017 and be able to think about how much time I've spent in that part of the range. So, a fairly easy hike. Definitely not difficult in any way. Just altitude and a lot of vertical. You just kind of head up the trail, and so I think I was back to the car by lunch or so, maybe one. So it was a fun day. Great views. I actually didn't see any bighorn sheep, and as I learned later, you're supposed to take a shot of whiskey to the summit. I didn't know that, and I don't really drink whiskey, but I forgot, and then I also forgot in 2017, but I guess that's life. Maybe I'll have to return a third time and try it. So the trail in this picture goes up kind of to the left side, up and around the more rocky stuff, and then you can see there's a close-up of what it looks like on a lot of the trail on the first couple miles. About a couple miles in, there's this really cool rock formation. Always looks to me like a lion head. And then once you kind of get around the south side of the mountain, there's a beautiful trail through the trees. And there was some snow up there even in July, early July, which is expected. And some beautiful wildflowers along. There are a couple lakes off to the south side of Whiskey Mountain, and this is Lake Louise. That's the first one that you can see there. And then this is looking over to Ram Flat, which is a big, broad plateau that you see to the west. Looking back to the trail, over the trailhead, over to the Absaroka Range.
And then there are fewer and fewer trees as you get up near the top, and then it becomes very bare, but some beautiful wildflowers up near the summit. There are just a few little rocky areas like this, but you don't have to go anywhere near those in order to reach the top. It's just a grassy stroll, and the summit is marked with this pole stuck in a cairn. So the view south over Ram Flat is just gorgeous all year round. There's a lot of snow that just stays up there, and looking over to the west, you can barely see the Grand Teton in the distance there. And so that's some pictures I took from the first trip I did of this peak in 2009.
When I was a kid living in Colorado, there was a partial solar eclipse in the mid '90s. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember projecting it on the wall with a hole cut through a cup, and just being fascinated at the process. And then I viewed many total lunar eclipses since then. I'm a little bit of an astronomy buff, and just really had been looking forward to 2017 for many years. As a kid, I did some research and looked and saw that, hey, in 2017, there's going to be a total solar eclipse that passes through Wyoming. I'm going to be along that path of totality no matter what. And so I've been counting down the days and the years for almost 20 years and more. And so after church on Sunday, I left and drove down. I was a little bit worried getting down there the afternoon the day before that the Trailhead was going to be filled up. And I pulled off the highway, and there were rangers there, and I was relieved to know that they still had parking. This trailhead usually has anywhere from 10 to 20, maybe 25 cars on it, and then there's a area where you can park some horse trailers and stuff that's very usually just you know empty. And so I was very, very amazed to see as many cars there. I think my parking lot that I was allowed into had been mown down in kind of a grassy field, and I was able to get a spot there. It was a mile, probably close to a mile walk to the trailhead itself from there. And I only went once and then just hung out at the car the rest of the day.
So as you can see, it was a zoo there on Eclipse the day before the eclipse. That parking lot there barely has anyone in it, and you can just see there are tons of cars everywhere. The trailhead, the restrooms there just had gobs of people. Definitely a weird atmosphere for a trailhead that's usually fairly quiet. But it was definitely an interesting party atmosphere. Everyone was super excited for the next morning.
On Eclipse Morning, I got a really early start because I wanted to get up to the summit and make sure I was really close to the top. I had no idea how many people were going to go all the way up because you had totality from the trailhead as well. I had researched Whiskey Mountain about a year before and have been planning to be there because I knew totality on top was somewhere in the neighborhood of just over 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And so I got I think a 4:30 a.m. start and reached the top maybe a little after 8. I packed my foam sleeping pad, chilled out on top. I brought a few beers to just enjoy while I waited, and there were already a couple people on the summit. I think I was the third there, and then by the time the eclipse, was in full swing, there were at least 100 people up near the summit. Guy brought a guitar up, was playing. It was really, really kind of a fun atmosphere.
The sunrise was absolutely beautiful. I started in the dark, and looking back, it was just amazing to watch the sun come up. There's a lot of forest fire smoke around that time that year. You'll see some haze that was down in the valleys, but up on Whiskey, you got up above it. There was some worry early on during the wait for the eclipse that we'd have some cloud cover, but the clouds kind of all melted away towards the time when the eclipse started, and you can see that it was I think I was third or fourth up to the summit, and pretty cold up there, but it was a lot of fun just getting to talk to people and meet people who were super excited for the eclipse, and a lot of people just hung out there all morning waiting for it.
So the total eclipse was it was the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen in my life. This day probably ranks in my top 5 days I would live over again if I could. and from the top of Whiskey, you can see the Grand Teton. And so it was fun to watch as the Grand just went black and just completely disappeared off of the skyline. And you started to see the shadow coming up over Togety Pass, and then you could just start to see it. And approaching, it got really dark. The planets came out. I know Venus was out for sure, some of the brighter stars. And then right before totality, there's a really cool effect called shadow bands, which is you see the ground in front of you actually look like it turns to water, and there's all these waves that happen. And it was unreal to see this. And then when totality happened, the temperature dropped. You could see north down into Du Bois. The whole town ground to a stop. You could see cars just stopped in the street, and people were getting out and looking up. Obviously, it's for many people a once in a lifetime sight if they get to see it at all. And you could look directly at the sun, and the blackness of where the sun had been was just hard to describe. It looked like there was just a hole in the sky, and then you could see all of the flare stuff happening out around it. It was otherworldly. There's no other way to put it. And so definitely a crazy, crazy moment to have witnessed, and I'm so glad I took the trip down to do it.
Look at the circle. You can see the light between day and night.
Oh my gosh.
Light behind you.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Shadow bands. You see the shadow bands? Yeah. Shadow bands right in front of us.
Oh, whoa, that's cool.
Look for the stars.
Look at Venus.
You can see the stars. Is that Venus? Wow. What? Look at the sun, no glasses needed!
Look at the.
The experience was definitely, like I said, one of my favorite days ever. Once the totality was done, everyone kind of made a mad dash to the car, and you can see a lot of people here headed down, and kind of a look at the trailhead. I got lucky when I got down there. There was a guy that offered me a ride the last mile from the outhouse to kind of to where I was parked, and then downtown Shoshone, there was, this is where the big traffic jam started.
Following the eclipse, I hoofed it down to the car. I think I ran a lot of the trail down, and I knew there was going to be crazy traffic, and so I was able to get down to the car probably before anybody coming off the summit. The road, the traffic wasn't too bad until I got to Shoshone, and then as you saw in the last picture, there was a guy directing traffic. The road from Shoshone to Thermopolis that goes through the canyon was, I think, 5 to 10 miles an hour. It was just a crawl. It was bumper to bumper traffic for miles upon miles. I've never seen anything like it. And it took me so long to get home. I don't even remember how long, but it's just one of those days you just have to go with the flow and just appreciate the amazing things that nature can show us at times. So that's the video for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next week for another one. Cheers.